everybody need me to go through like a full, you know, like the start from the beginning and work all the way through?
That would be good with me. I've never seen this before.
Okay, that sounds fine. I just kind of need to know where to start and how to go forward. So what I'll do is it should only take about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on if there's questions or whatever. I try to get through it, and then you know, you can talk to whomever you're dealing with about either a trial subscription and playing with it or whatever the case may be. So I'll go ahead and start. The first time you open the software and validate, this is the welcome screen that brings you into Aquamailer Desktop. And I just want to bring your attention, we have our menu bar along the top, and then this is a row of icons that have all the processes available to you as either an icon or when we bring it into the next screen or into the next portion where you can do pre-start or whatever, they're also available on the side. You'll see that in a few minutes. But the help documentation is very robust, so you can access the help here, or whenever you're in some portion of Aquamailer Desktop and you're saying, I know that there's something there, the F1 key is screen specific to whatever you're looking at that time and place within Aquamailer Desktop, and a lot of the questions are answered right there. But there again, if you also require help, please don't hesitate to call. So the first thing we're going to want to do is import a mail list. And so you can import a mail list one of three ways, and that's by going to File and Import, or you can click the import icon, or we can click on the link that's import a mail list. Whichever one you do brings us to the import file mail list screen. And I do have import setting definitions set up, but we're going to ignore that for the time being. So the first time you bring it in, you're not going to have this, so just ignore here. And then the file to import, we need to browse, and I have mine set up specifically in a folder, which is part of preferences. And I have my church mail list that I use on a regular basis, which is an Excel file. And it identified it here in the file type as Excel. Now, the software does support DBase3 FoxPro delimited, and that is tab, pipe, and comma delimited files, fixed length, Excel, and Access files, 2000 to 2003. And it did figure out that this is an Excel file, which is good. But I can also give it a new name here. It's creating its own file, so it never touches your raw data. It creates its own file to work within the software. And so I have the ability here, so today I'm going to call this church mail list, I'm going to give it my demo and call it 3118 because that's the date I'm running it. It's just some way for me to distinguish it maybe from other lists that I may have already done that are very similar or have a... Are there any questions? All right, then we'll click Next. And this is just giving me kind of it shows me a listing of some of the information that I'm bringing in that was in that file. Now, this is it's an Excel workbook, and if I had multiple worksheets, I could select a different worksheet from within that workbook here. It also identified it as having a header row. I'm going to click Next, and this is probably the most important part of importing, and that is field mapping. And that we have to map the address fields in order for the processes to run and to match up against the databases in the cloud. So it did identify my title field as a professional title and field mapping. It also identified my full name field as a full name field. It doesn't know that a church is a company, so from the drop-down, I'm going to go down and select the company field here. It identified my address field as being the primary address field. If I had a secondary address field, I would add that in, and then as you can see here, there's secondary address field down here. But it identified it as primary. I have my city. It mapped that. The state is mapped as well, and it mapped my zip code. Now, denomination isn't a screen, or it's not an address-specific field. I have the ability to bring it into the data grid, which is the next screen, or I can leave it as, I can click Do Not Import and not bring it in. So for today, we won't import it. So it's not going to bring this specific field into our work screen. If I click Next, I can create an import file definition. So I'm always getting this file from the same place. It's always the same fields. They're always named the same, etc. I can create an import file definition so that when I were to import it next time, I would go browse import file definitions. I can select that definition and apply it, and it saves me from having to map those fields. I've got a green star so I can run, and that brings all of my records into the data grid. Now, are there questions about import?
When you save the import, save job definitions, then...
Or the import file definition?
Well, okay, never mind. I'll wait till you get there.
Okay, because a job definition is different than an import file definition. They're both definitions, but they're doing different things. So this is our data grid, and this is where all the processing takes place. So if we were going to append or add to the existing list, we could click the import button here, and as you can see, it says append file to existing mail list. We can add records to this in case you had multiple files that you wanted to add in. Otherwise, we would leave import, we wouldn't import again. Import is done usually just up front unless we're adding. The ZIP4 is going to append and standardize. It's going to append the ZIP+4 field, and it is also going to standardize the addresses according to the USPS specification. You have the ability to keep the mail list company name value the way you bring it in, which is what I recommend doing, but you can update it to what the USPS has on file for that company. But you want to be careful there. You have in your list maybe IBM. Post Office maybe calls it International Business Machines. So it's going to change it if you select that update mail list company name to match the USPS company name. Now, sometimes you want to prevent significant changes to the addresses as presented. That depends on the type of business that you are. If you do that, it may not pre-sort and it may not do the other processes properly. You can also change the CAS summary here if you need to, but we're going to do that. We're going to add that information in the pre-sort screen. So this is going to, as I said, standardize and append the 4-digit zip extension. I can select Run right now and have it do that, or I can click on NCOA link, and as you can see, the ZIP+4 options are available here as well. So in order to do NCOA link, it requires that ZIP4 process to run along with it. So you can save yourself a little bit of time if that's all you want to do, and run the NCOA link and ZIP4 at one time, and that's all part of this one window. But in order to do that, I have to have a processing acknowledgement form, and as you can see, I have a red exclamation point here that says the job requires an NCOA path, NCOA link path. I'm going to click my Find Path, and as you can see, I have 2 paths listed here. Now, if you don't see it here, it means you probably need to create a new path. And we'll click this Create New Path, and it takes us to the EasyPath website. And here you're going to decide if you're processing the list for your customer or if you're the owner of the mail list. Whichever one you select, it's going to ask us for additional information. So you would put in the list owner contact information, their company information, physical address, and then the types of lists that you're doing and how often you're doing them. Once you've completed this, you are going to click Next, and it's going to submit. I think you submit at that time. Then you get a link. You click on a link in your email, and you sign it electronically and submit again. And that way, then we're able to approve it internally here. But that's the processing acknowledgement form. And so if I close out of the EasyPath website, I got to go back here. I'm going to select my Lorton Data Demo and select. My red exclamation point went away. It means that this process now is ready to run. I've got a green star. Green stars mean the processes are ready to run, or if you're not sure that you've run them, you can check in your reports. That's the NCOA link aspect of it. Are there questions? And you all know that NCOA is a national change of address. It looks to see who's on your list, and if they've moved or their address has been updated in some way, shape, or form. It matches it against the USPS databases. I can click Close here, or I can choose to Run. I'm just going to save it right now and close. And I'll show you, this is part of the job processing definition panel. If I move NCOA link over here, I can run multiple processes together at one time by moving those processes over here in the group task to run them together. I can run them independently if I choose, or I can run them as a group process. I like to save time, so I like to use my group processing panel. Then DSF2, we're going to bypass. That's creating a walk sequence. There's an additional charge to that. We're not going to go into that right now. Do by D process, that allows us to dedupe the list depending on match criteria. You have the ability to select duplicate elimination and do it on address and full name. I did bring in a full name field, so I can do that as my matching logic. Or I can select address only, or I can select address and company name. It depends on which duplicates I want to remove out of the list if I choose to dedupe the list. You can also do custom, where you create specific custom fields to dedupe on. Are there questions about duplicate elimination? If not, then I am going to just ignore that for now. I'm not going to run do by D on this list. I want it to go to everybody, and it kind of depends on who you want to receive the mailings, or if you want to curtail, limit the mail pieces that you want to send to an address. That's where dedupe comes in handy. Okay, suppress. Not everybody has suppress on their as part of their product key. Suppress allows you to look, if you do have the suppress option, it will look at those records on your list and match it against the Direct Marketing Association for people who don't want to be solicited. So that's what suppress is if you have that, and if you want it. And pre-sort, that's where we want to put it in pre-sort specific, we want to put it in pre-sort order. And so I always compare this to doing a questionnaire. It wants to know who I am and the type of mailing that I'm doing or who I'm doing it on behalf. So when you click the pre-sort button, the first thing it wants to know is your mailing information. And this is like an address book. And under permit holder, I can click select edit add, and I've only got one in here, and this is mine, so I can click select. And I'm saying that I'm also the mailing agent, so I'm preparing the mailing, and I'm also the mail owner. Now, you might be doing the mailing on behalf of other people. If that's the case, let's say there's a different mailing agent, you would click new, and let's put in, let's say, ABC Company. I can't spell, and Joe Smith, and address is 123 Main Street. And this is anywhere USA, let's say we're in Minnesota, and 55112, whatever. And I'm going to put in a phone number, an email address. We'll just bypass that. If you have a nonprofit number, or your customer has a nonprofit number, you would plug that in. And if they have whatever the permit number is, and then the mailer ID. And then the CRID, we'll just go 7654321 and save. Now, go here. Where did it go? It disappeared. I must not have saved it. It did not save my ABC Company. Why not? I think my CRID was the same as the other one. Yep. I would have had to have done it. But anyway, it would have populated that. You would add that information in for whomever in your address book. So if you're the mailing agent, whomever you're working for, you want to make sure that your information that you're populating is specific to that company, that individual, whomever. And so I'm the permit holder, I'm the mailing agent, and the mail owner. That's the way I have this set up. I'm going to stop for a second and just ask, do you have questions about the address book?
Do you have to fill this screen out every time for every single mailing?
No. Once you've plugged it in, it saves the information. Okay. It should have added that. It should have added the other one in here as well, the one that I just created. But I think because I used the same CRID numbers before, it's saying it doesn't like that. You have to have unique information in here. But once you input it, it's there. The only time it wouldn't be there is if you're switching machines. You would have to transfer the files that you created here on this specific machine and move it to that one as well. So you would copy them, put them on a thumb drive, or put them on a network drive where you could access them, and then plug that information in again, so you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time. Okay. So yeah, you would do this for every customer. You would create, an entry in the address book. Then we would click either next or specifications, and then that's what it wants to know, who we are and what we do. So it's the class of mail. So for here, we're going to select standard, and my mail rate is going to be regular. I'm not a nonprofit. From the drop-down next to envelope, there's a whole bunch of options here. There's a commercial 10, which is what I use most of the time for demos. Seems to be what a lot of people do. You can use the pre-populated, or you can just say that you've got a 5.5 by, let's see, 5.5 by 8.5. And it will complete that information. You can always overwrite that or select from the drop-down. Now, if you don't know your thickness and weight, what we recommend doing is using our calculator. And here you would want to take so many pieces of a completed mailing. So let's say you're doing the commercial 10 envelope, and you've got 15 of those pieces stacked up, and you're going to press lightly with your finger and measure with a ruler how thick those completed mail pieces are. It looks like I'm doing, here, I'm going to cancel this. Let's go back. I'm going to do my commercial 10. And I'm going to use this. And so I've got 25 pieces that I've stuffed in an envelope ready to go, and I'm measuring them, and it's got a thickness. Those 25 pieces measure 1.5 inches thick, and I'm putting in 25 pieces. I figured out what the thickness was for me. I don't have to do that. Then I'm going to weigh those 25 pieces, and they weighed 8 ounces, and it seems to think I'm weighing 25 pieces because that's what I plugged in over here. If it was different, you would change that. And it calculated my weight. I can click apply. My red exclamation points disappeared. So you have to think about the red exclamation points, the yellow triangles, and the green stars as a stoplight. Red means stop, information still required. Yellow means caution. Stop a minute, think about this, hover, and we say hover to discover here. It tells you when you hover over it what the caution sign is or the red exclamation point, etc. And green means your process is ready, you can run. I want to make sure I checkbox the barcoded field so it creates an intelligent mail barcode. That's important. I want to do that to get the best discounts possible. And it's looking at those specifications and saying, oh, yep, it's machinable, and it checkboxed it for me, meaning it can go through the post office's machines. Is there a question? Okay. Then in the postage option, I'm using a permit, but as you can see here, there's lowest meter, correct meter, and stamps as well. I'll select permit. Red exclamation point disappeared again. Now, if you're doing a flat, you can sort to carrier route. Also, if you're doing bringing in a list with a walk sequence, you would probably want to sort to carrier route as well. Then if you're doing manifest mailing, meaning like you're doing cell phone bills or whatever, and there are multiple sheets within, and you've got a list that's got the calculations set for manifest mailing, you could select that. And if you have palletization capability, you can do that as well. Then we want to know mailing date, and that's the date we're going to take it to the post office. This is going to go on Monday. And then my move update method, I'm running NCOA link on this list, so I'm going to select NCOA. And then it's set to today's date. I haven't run anything yet, so it's leaving this unchecked, which is good. I can click next. So as you can see right now, my specifications, I have no red exclamation points within this box. So it means I can continue. I'll click next. It bypassed periodicals because in mailing specifications I had selected standard mail, not periodicals. If I had selected periodicals, then that would be the next screen that popped up, but since we're not, it's going to go straight to the mail.dat options. Mail.dat is the electronic submission of all your paperwork to the post office. So you would create, by checkboxing this, it would create a mail.dat file during the pre-sort process in order to upload this electronically to the post office. So you could, so we'll just do this for here, and I'll go here. I'm going to put in Joe Smith again, and his phone number, which I always like to use, are the 8th. It pulled in the CRID from my mailing information, my customer reference ID. The payment account number is only if you have a Mail Anywhere account, so we'll ignore that. If I was doing a metered mailing or pre-canceled stamp mailing, I would have to add the additional permit number for payment here. Generally, people who have a lowest meter, correct meter, or a pre-canceled stamp permit, you also have a secondary permit. And so you would have to populate the secondary permit ZIP +4 and permit numbers. Not in this field, I'm sorry, in this field and this field. But we're not doing that. We're doing just a standard permit mailing. My postage payment option, I'm going to do other. I'm paying with a credit card, but if you have a CAPS account or PBDS account, you would select that. My piece weight source, I did this. I used the information here, so it's real time from agent. If you calculate with a formula, I believe that that is if you're doing a manifest mailing. If you took it to the post office and had the postal clerk, measure and weigh your piece, then you would select postal clerk. Or if you're doing a first class mailing, it would be logically implied from rate. And if you're not sure, hit the F1 key and scroll down. As I said, it's screen specific, and so it's telling you here, real time from agent, the piece was actually weighed, calculated, manifest mailing, etc. So the help documentation, as I said, is screen specific and gives you a lot of information right then and there. So we'll select that, and now I can click my next. I don't have any red exclamation points in here. If you have a USPS on-site post office, that's what this information is for. We'll click next, and this is my intelligent mail option. Because I'm submitting electronically, I can select full service. Now you might use Postal Wizard. Again, you can select the full service option, giving you that additional discount. I'm going to auto-assign my service type ID, the STID, and it defaults into the address change service as being no address correction. But perhaps you have signed up for one code full service or traditional, meaning you would get the piece back and pay for them. Those pieces, they come back, and depending on how you get them, either an electronic file or the actual piece, again, you would have to know which one this is here. I'm just going to leave mine as no address correction. My mailer ID, I populated the MID from my mailing information, but because I'm also doing full service, I'm going to select here my Lorton data. Again, the mail piece ID is that of the mail owner. The tray sack is that of the mail preparer, the agent, mailing agent. And I'm going to auto-assign serial numbers. We recommend auto-assigning, letting the system track your serial numbers so that you don't have to and make mistakes. Then we click next. Is there questions? I'm sorry, I'm going too fast and not asking. Does anybody have questions?
Well, I only have one.
Okay.
We normally mail small quantities of the same type of card all week long. We print them as we go. So we're generating the address list as we go, and then we print them on the cards. And then at the end of the week, when we take everything to the post office, we combine all the lists into one big mailing. And what's happening is we're getting undocumented pieces because the system will then re-barcode everything, and then the barcodes that are submitted to the post office are not the ones that we actually printed on the card.
Right. Because it's not being pre-sorted together, and so that barcode, if you're creating a barcode at that point, it's going to be different. So
right. Now, the guy who told me to look into this product said that there was a way around it.
Right. So what you would do is rather than printing these things as you go, you would group your lists together and process them.
I can't do that because on Monday I find out I have 100 pieces for this guy, and then an hour later another 100 pieces comes in for a different guy, and all week long it goes on like that. So if I had to save everything up till the end of the week, I would be doing nothing all week long and then working my butt off on Thursday.
Yeah, and the thing is you have to have a minimum of 200 pieces in order to qualify for any kind of pre-sort.
Yeah, that's the problem I'm running into. So what I did to get around that was I faked it. I filled the address list with some known addresses that I could then remove after I pre-sorted it to have the 200, but that's not working either.
Yeah, because the pieces are different mail pieces too, right? They're different dimensions?
No, they're all the same. That's the whole thing. We have, I'll have 7,000 cards or 8,000 cards at the end. Actually, in 2 days, I'll have 8,000 cards. It's just that not any of them are from one person. I mean, I run, 100 for this guy, 100 for that guy, 150 for this other guy, 140 for some other guy. Sometimes it's over 200, sometimes it's not. And then when we're all done, now I have 8,000 cards that are all the same, and then I run all the addresses at once to generate the paperwork for the post office. But it's changing the barcode all the time.
Sure.
From the ones that were printed to the ones that are then combined.
Yeah. So I would have to think about that for a little bit because I'm not sure you could, because you're printing the addresses and barcodes on the pieces as you go. Basically, they then aren't part of a pre-sort. They're an individual mailing Yeah, I would have to think about that a little bit.
Okay, because that's what the guy told me, that this software would solve my problem. I mean, that would be the only reason to get this is if we could solve that problem.
Are you working with the dealer specifically?
I am. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but
I'm sorry, what?
I don't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. I have his phone number somewhere. But yeah, I was talking to someone who recommended this software and asked me to join in here today to get an idea of what it's capable of doing.
Right.
And one of the things they told me was that it would solve this problem.
Yeah, as I said, I'm scratching my head right now. We need to think about that a little bit, because if you're printing, ahead of time, I'm not sure how that would work exactly.
Okay.
So let me think about it, and then, as I said, you may want to reach out to the individual that you spoke with.
Okay.
They might have a good idea as well. All right. So,
okay.
Any other questions at this point, or should we keep moving on? Okay, we'll keep going. I'll click the next button, and that's going to take me to the entry point screen. So where are we going to bring it to? Which post office are we bringing it to? And underneath here, you can see there's nothing selected, so we'll click on this Find Entry Point. And my mailing, I want to get an SCF discount, but I need to sort to the right location. So I'm just going to put in a 3-digit here. It says city and or zip and or city partial selected. I'm just going to put in 551 and click Find. And it's going to filter on only those SCF facilities in a 551 zip code. And so here I can select my St. Paul in Eagan as my facility. If you click the Manage button, it gives you the physical location, it gives you the phone numbers, the logistics phone, it also gives you the zip range for that mailing. And I'm going to hit Add Selected here, and it's going to populate my entry point. It made an assumption that that's also where my permit is held, which is not true, so I'll go through the same exercise here. And again, I'm in New Brighton, so I'll click Find just to show you it's the same thing. And I'll select my New Brighton post office. So that's where my permit's held. I clear it here and take it here. And I'll click the Next button, and it wants to know which records to exclude from pre-sort. And it defaults to move no valid forwarding address, because most people do not want to mail to somebody who's not there anymore, although there are times that you do have to, just to prove that you did attempt. If I'm running duplicates as part of a group process, which is over here, it will remove those if the dupe ID is included in the group here. I can exclude foreign addresses. If the post office has identified that address is being vacant for over 90 days, I can remove that address. If for whatever reason it failed the delivery point validation, I can exclude those. And if for whatever reason the post office didn't recognize it, or didn't DPV validate, or didn't Zip4 validate, it will exclude those as well. So these are all options as to whether you want to exclude those or not. If you're doing an election or political mailing, you can select either one of those. If you qualify for incentives to the post office, this is currently what's available, and you would add that in here as well. The TraceTech bundle override options, we recommend using the default, but your business may have specifically 2-foot EMM trays. You can select that at that point. You can also set your maximum bundle thickness, your minimum tray fill percentage, and your maximum tray fill percentage. I use the default and let the system work on my behalf. So you can see here I've got a yellow exclamation point down here. It says run Zip+4 before pre-sorting or as part of a multi-step process, which is what I'm going to do. And the mailer says no delivery point kind defined. That's because we haven't done that the Zip+4 processing yet. So I'll save here and close, and I'm going to move that over. And the last thing I would need to do is export the list, and I need to put it in a format to use it with my Mailpiece Design software. So the software doesn't print itself. It tells you to export the file in a format that you can use with that. So we'll click Export. And I'm using Envelope Designer, which is a piece of software here that you can access through Lorton. And but let's say that you do want to export it in Excel. Again, it supports delimited, tab, pipe, and comma. It supports Excel, it supports DBF, fixed with ASCII, Visual Fox Pro, and there's an advanced export label if you wanted that. But we'll just use DBF for now. In my records to export, I want them to export in pre-sort order, so I'll select the pre-sort radio button. From the drop-down, I'm going to use Ascending. I'm using Envelope Designer, so I prefer using Ascending at that point. I can always print in reverse order from within that software. I can limit my container or bundle, or let's say that you printed X amount and you had to stop and you have to reprint a certain bundle, you can limit it here. You have the ability to export all fields, or you can just export specific fields. I'm going to go, at this point, export all of them. I'll click the Next button. I have to save the file somewhere, so I'm going to browse. And I've got it set up to go on my desktop in a completed jobs folder. But you can select whichever folder you want to and give it a new name. And today we'll call it Demo 3118 and save. So now it's got a name. And in my post-export, I'm using Envelope Designer, so I can select that. Whoops. And if I have a layout already set up, I can browse for that layout within Envelope Designer. If I'm always doing the same type of mailing, I can save that export definition and apply it in the beginning, and it will just remember this information for me, which is what the definition is. I'll click Save and Close, and now I can move the export over as well. So I'll click the Run All button, and it asks me to confirm, so I'll confirm my process, and it's going to go ahead and run. It's going to do the zip-for, it's going to do the NCOA link, it's going to pre-sort it, and then it's going to export it and attach it to Envelope Designer all at one time. Now, we're at a half-hour point right now, and as you can see, it took me a little bit of time to go through that. You can do something which is called saving the job definition. So if you've got a specific job, it's always this kind of a card, always this kind of a letter, it's for this specific customer, whatever it is. You can save the job definition to be specific to that type of job. And what I'll do now is I'm going to hide this and minimize here, and let's open it again. And I'm going to go to this one that I did on the 15th. This is the job that I ran. Oh, that's not the right one. I need to go to a different one. Sorry. Let's go to So I ran this one on the, whatever date it was, the 8th of February. And let's say if we were to just look at this pre-sort, it's going to look a lot like the one we just did. Specifications. Oh, this was a letter, but it was a 5.5 by 8.5. So I'm doing this letter for ABC Company. They always do this 5.5 by 8.5 postcard at this time of year. I can save this as a job definition. So all of this information is current and proper. I can click the Save as Job Definition, and I can give it a new name, and we'll use today's date again, and save. Now the next time I import this, let's close, and I'm going to import a mail list again. I'm going to use my import file definition from the 8th, and it's going to look at that, that's okay, and now we're going to call this 318A, and oops, I'm going to run. So I just imported the mail list. I used an import file definition. I'm going to select a job definition here, and we'll select today's date, apply. It set all of that information up for me. I might want to change the export name, and I might want to change the mailing date. Those are the two things that I might want to change. I can click Run, and it's going to just go ahead and do the whole process all together, what's going on in the background on the other one, which is here, I believe, status. That's how quick you can set up a job when you have the job definition preset for you. It's just a matter of having it all together and ready to run. You apply the job definition after you've imported it, and it's ready to process. This one's done. It's asking us if we want to lengthen, so we're going to lengthen. If you truncate, it can prohibit the list from possibly mailing. And here it goes. It's completely export. There's opening Envelope Designer. I'll minimize that. It's saying here 413 records were exported. So out of my original list of 467, certain ones didn't qualify for export because of the additional options that I set up in pre-sort. The ones that I excluded, I'll hit OK here and close. Now, once it's processing, it generated reports. If I click on my reports icon, I can hit the plus button, and here's all the reports that were generated. So here I have my CAS summary. I have my ZIP +4 NCOA linked address update, so any changes that were made to any of the addresses, it created a report for me to look at and see which ones changed. My trade tag files are here. My mail.dat file is here to submit electronically, and my postage statement is here. Click on the postage statement, and here's what the postage statement looks like. They're not pretty, but they are PAVE certified. They're fine. You can see here that I've got, looks like it's 3 trays, 2 1-foot and 1 2-foot tray, 413 pieces. Total weight of the entire mailing was 8.26 ounce, or 8 pounds 26 ounces. Sub-postage, total postage was $100.38, and you can always zoom and make this bigger. And here's the sortation and the cost per piece. So that's the postage statement. Tray tags look like this. There's only 3 tray tags, but it's telling us here tray 1 of 3, 350 pieces goes into the first tray. 53 pieces goes into the second tray, and the residual probably goes, there's 10 pieces that go into tray 3. So that's our tray tags. Let's see here. I'm going to stop and ask if there's questions.
When you save a job definition, well, on the bottom of all those screens, there's a save button. You know, like if you're in Suppress or wherever you are and you're setting things up, there's a save button. That only saves it for the current job, and then if you want to make it part of the job definition, you got to go back and do another save there.
Right. So if you make a change, that save, I think, just saves what's here. That's what this save is. It's just saving all the information that you've done here. The save as job definition is specific to the setup.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that's where I was running amok. I was going to save the bottom of all the screens, and nothing was there when I went.
Right. You need to save the job definition, and then when you bring that mail list in again, you would go up to the job definitions and apply. It's a save as job definition that's going to remember all the information that you set up in your pre-sort, in your NCOA, et cetera.
Okay. So then if I'm, like we use exactly the same mail list, but we mail different items, which are different sizes, so then I just create a job definition for each one of them. Great.
So if you look here, there's a few in here that are already pre-populated, but, you know, it just kind of depends on the job. So as I said, you know, I had a demo, it's a 10. Then I've done some here, there's a RE/MAX postcard, 5.5 by 8.5. I think I was working with somebody with RE/MAX. There's a standard flat, 9 by 12. It just kind of depends on what the mailing is, and you can have multiple you know, job definitions. You can also create additional folders so that maybe this specific business has 5 different types of mailing, and so you only have to go to that folder and then grab the job definition for that specific company.
Okay. That seems to be the main place I'm getting tangled up, so I'll keep working on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a matter of, remember to save it as not the save here, but save as job definition and make it specific to what you're working in.
Okay.
At that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. If not, then I'm going to go ahead and I'll end the webinar. If you have questions, please contact the person that you're working with, or you can call in